Sometimes a book finds you not when you're searching for answers, but when you're finally brave enough to look at the questions you've avoided. I've got an author I'd like you to meet who pulls back the curtain on the beautiful hopes and brutal realities inside a marriage shaped by addiction. Stick around because you'll not only find out more about the author, you'll learn more about the book that she wrote and how she created it.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is Lisa K Friedman. Join us as she shares the inspiration behind her book, along with her writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Lisa K Friedman, is an award-winning essayist, author, and educator whose work appears in newspapers and magazines, in print and online, including New York Times, Smithsonian, and in the Huffington Post, where she maintained a humor column for several years. She holds an MA degree in fiction from the Johns Hopkins University and a BA in American Literature from George Washington University. She teaches creative writing at American University and mentors professional and beginning writers in the art of essay and memoir. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you. So let's dive right in. Favorite question, that's why we created a podcast with the same name. I know you didn't find this book, it found you. So how did the book find you?
The book found me because my sister married an addict. It was my first experience with anything like this, and it tormented me for a long time, and I was confused for a long time. And it occurred to me after a long time passed, 5-6 years, that one of my surprises about myself was that I didn't think it could happen in my family. And that sounds very arrogant, I know. I also think that a lot of people maybe think this. And so when I was trying to get my own mind around this issue, I realized that I'm probably not the only one who feels this way. And so I started to put it on paper. I started to just jot down some wrong thoughts that I had.
Right.
And I wanted to see how that would turn out. That's how it started.
Yeah. And that's the classic how a book finds us, right?
That's right.
So everybody asking you, why? Well, I didn't have a choice. It was banging on the door of my head. So here you. Have you seen the TV show Matlock, the new one? The new one.
No.
Oh, there's a new one that's on Paramount, and it deals with addiction. And it deals with it in a very sensitive and progressive manner. In other words, it's not like the old addictions where we'll just go and everything will be okay because now we're going to get treatment and that's the way it works. It deals with the heaviness of it and the pervasiveness of it.
That's the word.
Yeah. And the wanting to believe in that things are getting better. But it's not a movie. It's not a Disney show. Usually it doesn't necessarily get better. Anyway, it's very real and raw. Might be something that you want to see, and very well acted. So it's actually on CBS, but it's also on Paramount streaming. All right, we've done enough advertising for them. They're going through a merger anyway. Let's leave them alone. Yeah. Okay. All right, so Hello Wife tackles the hard truth of addiction. I noticed it explores sort of tension. Were you afraid to kind of climb in and sort of talk about what was going on that close to home, so to speak?
Afraid? No, because I didn't really consider that I was writing a book.
Yeah.
I was just trying to write myself out of my own confusion.
Right.
And I wrote the whole thing in about 3 months. I took one summer. I made no appointments. I had no lunch dates. I didn't go to nothing.
Right.
And I wrote from early in the morning until late at night, literally, because I wanted to get it done.
Right.
And it wasn't until I went back and I looked at it a few times that I realized that there were some things that I shared that might be of value for others. But really, my goal was to create a character that you could not slough off. In other words, you couldn't just say, oh, well, she has problems, or, oh, well, she was mentally unwell, or she didn't have a good child. I didn't want the reader to be able to dismiss her.
Right.
And so that's when I went back into the pages and I brought out characters who, in one way or another, you can find something to love, or at least you can find something to understand.
Right.
And that took me a really long time. And as I went ahead, I began to love this character. The character, her name is Charlotte. She's the one who marries an addict. She only ever wanted to be married. She's 47, never met anybody. And she meets this guy. He's 52. It's over. There's no way she's ever going to let him go.
Right.
But I wanted you to be stuck with her. I wanted you to love her in a way that would not allow you, the ordinary person like me who has no experience, to simply say, that can't happen to me because.
Right. How close are the characters to the real life scenario that inspired the book?
The book is based on the scenario exactly.
Okay.
But the characters are not.
Okay. Good. And I'm smiling because when that thing really took hold and you were almost obsessively writing,
Yep.
Did you find yourself kind of walking around with a tape recorder? In other words, there's a lot of time when we're not writing and the brain is still writing. I mean, it's still shouting, don't forget this, put this in, capture that. Were you hounded by that a little bit?
I wasn't. Interesting question.
Nice.
I wasn't, which surprises me. I think because it's a horrible subject. It's so painful to watch somebody in real life do this.
Right.
And also in the book, you're watching someone making terrible choices, but you understand her reasons. You understand what is motivating her in this way.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any time to add extra notes. I literally wrote and nothing else. My husband would come home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. All the lights would be off because I hadn't moved from my writing chair all day.
Wow.
Sometimes I don't even remember to drink water. And it was sort of like a manic 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not easy, but I needed to get it finished because you don't want to be in there.
Right. Right. I'm again, I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm laughing because I had with a publisher one time, I was on a deadline and we had a place and we rented a place in Rehoboth Beach.
Yeah.
And it was an old place. And we had it for a few weeks, but my family kind of left after the first week and came back about 3 days later. And I did one of those 3-day benders almost.
Yep.
But this house was so old that I was sitting for so long, like you said, that mice would come out. And it took a while, but all 3 days, after a few hours of no movement, they went, we don't have to worry about that guy. They were having a field day, and it wasn't my house. So I was sort of just looking at them, but thinking, wow, I'm really not moving.
Yeah.
The mice are coming. Was there ever a time where you thought in that 3 month, maybe I ought to just let this be? Maybe this is not the path for me. Or were you just single focused and it just never faded?
Never faded.
Nice.
Mainly, I needed to get to the end. I didn't want to be doing this anymore.
Right.
And it had to end because in my mind, I was trying to work through how to deal with this.
Right.
And I don't want to spend the next however long, 20 years in therapy trying to figure it out. So I figured, get to the end and let's see how I feel about it then.
Right. So what was the most challenging part of the process for you?
The most challenging part of the process, to be absolutely honest, was letting it go. When I finished,
yeah,
and I don't let people read as I go. I just do what I need to do. And when it's over, then I have my readers. When I finished, I was afraid to let the manuscript out of my sight. So much so that I took it with me. When I went to bed at night, I took it with me and I put it on the floor next to my side of the bed so that if something happened between me and this main character, it was close enough to me that I always felt like we were still together. The characters and me, we were still together because it's so painful, this kind of story, that you become, quite attached to these people. These are my people. Then I worked on it for several years after the first draft was finally finished. When it was finished, I knew I had something special, though. And I've written books before and all kinds of things, but when I finished this book, I thought, okay, this is different. I wasn't sure what it was. And I didn't look at it again for a little while because it was too close. I felt like maybe a little too, maybe it wasn't healthy.
Right. Was it always a book? In other words, I have one of my books that was actually a lot of journal entries. I didn't really necessarily know I was creating a book, but I was keeping a journal for almost 20 years of my life on the road. And then I don't want to slow us down with more stories about that. But then I saw that I could make it into a book. Was this from day one a book, or was it an exercise of trying to work out, almost a therapy session mentally?
It was a book.
Always.
It was always a book.
Okay.
And it was like a capsule.
Right.
So I knew where the edges were. And when it was over, it was very definitely over. And basically, when I was writing it, I just tried to keep up with the pace of the story as it was unfolding in front of me. I was chasing it.
Okay. And when you finished it, there's always a bit of emotion when we finish a book. What was that like for you when you dotted the last I and realized, okay, I may have some editing to do, whatever, but that's the first draft?
It was absolutely celebratory. Because, again, it was different. It was a very different feeling. I knew I had something that was special. And it came full circle. I didn't boss the plot around. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was simply following the story. The story comes to a natural, organic ending. And when that was done, I thought, well, then it's done. And I was very happy and relieved and glad.
Good. All right. So I'll be with you in a moment. Folks, that's what I want you to hear. There's a lot that goes into writing a book. And that some days are better than others. But what we always want to hear is that when we complete a manuscript, it's quite the experience. And for you, it's that experience on steroids, because a lot of us are creating characters and, we're not quite as attached to those characters. Yours was a lot deeper than that, but I'm glad to hear that. I think some people think, will there be a void in my life? No, we've got marketing. We have some other things to do. We're not done yet. We've got to clean it up, and we're going to go there now. I want to hear about the marketing and the publishing journey, but boy, there's nothing like it. Did you ever see the movie? I'm in the movies today. It's a Stephen King novel where it's about a writer. Kathy Bates plays in it. Misery. Yep. So you've seen that?
I love movies.
I remember as a young man, because that came out some years ago, that he kept a cigar on his computer, if you may recall. And when he finished the manuscript, he looked at it the whole time. And when he finished, that was his routine. And I really took from that, not that I needed to smoke a cigar, but that I needed to do something to celebrate the completion of this project and to look forward to that moment.
Yes, and to put an end stamp on it. Right. I finished something.
Right.
It's funny when you said Misery, because that's a really old movie, as you know. And when I first started writing, I had a little corner in our bedroom where I wrote, and next to it was a big baker's rack with the TV and all this junk on it and a bottle of champagne. And I thought, from Misery, I should have a little something here to remind me that there's an end.
Right.
I never drank it.
Right.
Now that I think about it, but a reminder.
Right. I wasn't as creative as you. I couldn't come up with what I wanted, so I actually ended up putting a cigar out there. And for my first handful of books was always a cigar. But one last thing, I call back, but that Matlock show that I want you to watch stars Kathy Bates.
I know. When
Okay.
you said it, I thought I was excited by it last night. I saw a trailer or something during
Yeah.
football on Sunday,
Right.
and I made a mental note. I'm going to like this.
Yes.
Love
Yeah.
her.
Well, Kathy Bates is amazing. All right. So the marketing. So when was the book finished?
The book is not ever finished,
Okay.
but I learned something very important. I heard from I read about a very famous artist who said that even when their work is hanging in the museum, if they see it, when they see it, they always see something that needs to be changed, fixed. So when the book was finished, it took a very long time for me to let it go, to let anybody else read it. And then I worked about 2.5 years on the writing.
Okay. 2.5 years on the editing of the writing?
Yeah. Just fixing the writing, making it perfect, reading it out loud. I was a little crazy about it. And then the book was finished last year, I would say early winter.
Okay. Did you use a copy editor or are you the copy editor?
No, the publisher assigned me to an editor,
Okay.
and there were several levels of editing, which I did not know.
Mhm.
So that's a very interesting thing that I'm going to tell everybody as I teach my writing classes, that when you're finished, you're not even remotely finished.
Right.
But altogether, I would say by the winter of last year, it was finished.
Right. Well, I would tell your classes also that you move into a different phase of writing. I think that the hardest part is really muscling out that manuscript. And so there is the editing, and then, it depends if you go with a conventional publisher, you're kind of approving the editing more than anything else. But I want people to realize that the heavy lifting is that manuscript. You get that manuscript done. It's not that we can coast to the finish line, but it's a different phase. To me, I'm in a much better mood once I've muscled it out. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, it's so much more relaxed because the material's down.
Right.
So you can separate out. You could even take a couple of days off and come back. It's still there.
Right. How involved are you in the marketing of the book?
I love marketing. So I would say I'm 100% involved. I love marketing.
I know. I was me climbing back into my chair. I fell out of the chair. Okay, my jaw is still stuck open. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that. Tell people why you love marketing, because normally on this show, I get the marketing and everyone looks like a deer caught in the headlights.
Or worse, like they're going to vomit, right? That's the hardest thing for a
sick
writer.
Deer caught in the headlights. Well said. Okay.
A long time ago, I was employed by a medical computer company, computerized medical management. It's pretty sexy stuff, I know. And they sent me, this very young person, to a conference called Guerrilla Marketing, which is the name of a book.
Right.
And the keynote speaker was whoever was this is a very long time ago, mind you. He was the head of FedEx, Federal Express. And he gave this lecture on the idea of marketing is, what can you do to get my attention? You want to put on a clown nose? That's one way. Make a song like a little ditty? That's another way. A slogan, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight? That's another way. And it sort of blew my mind that how creative marketing is.
Right.
So when the book was first being, sussed out and the cover, and already my mind was thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to talk to people about this book? And where do I see it going? And one of my favorite things to do is to write short essays. And humor is my very favorite kind of essay. And so I sort of mapped out in my mind, what could I write? Everybody loves to read humor, right?
Right.
What could I write about? What humor essays can I put together that reflect something about the book? Or it's just it's a much more fun way to write for me, humor essays. So I want to use what I love to do to market this project. It's a hard project, right? It's about addiction. And people really don't want to talk about hard things. But I keep at it. And again, the book just came out end of September, so it's really just starting. But in terms of marketing, I think, what do I have to say that could entertain you, inform you, turn you on a little bit to a subject, but not necessarily talking about myself. The hardest thing, I think, as a writer is to promote yourself. So I try not to promote myself. Rather, I promote either the topic, the style, the setting, the character, the tone of the book, something that's like a sideline. And it's more fun, it's easier, and also it's much more, the people on the other end of this kind of material are hungry for it. In that way, you can be a little successful a little faster.
Right. Okay. So let me tell you what I'm learning from you on this. That there's a lot of ways to market the book. You just find certain things that appeal to you in terms of marketing.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of one that just to you is kind of fun, or it just works within your wheelhouse?
Fun. Okay. So I wrote a piece that was published in People magazine. It was published the day before the book came out. And it was why I wrote this book. Because as I was talking to people before the book was published, and I was talking to people and doing all of my pre-marketing outreach, I heard that question more than 3 times. Why would you write about this, right? Why would you do this? And I thought, why did I write this book? And so I wrote an essay. Why did I write this book? And in 24 hours, they picked it up. It's not funny. The essay is not funny. It's very short, but it's about my experience with this subject and how I figured out a way to grapple with it, digest it, manage it. So it wasn't about the book. It was about the reason that I did it.
Were you using a publicist?
Then I was using a publicist.
Okay. So that's because, sometimes it's hard to get on People magazine's radar screen.
It's hard to get on anybody's screen.
Right.
It is, except for one thing. The people who are dealing with content right now, the competition is so fierce, and there are so many outlets that are looking for content that a little research really goes a long way. Right. So I try and find venues that are. Also, one more thing about essay writing that I would love to sort of disperse this information. Essays are short, 600 to 800 words long. And so if a magazine, digital, print, doesn't matter, if they have extra space, an advertiser backs out or someone's article doesn't have the word count that they need, they have these very small available spaces that they need to fill. You can't have white space.
Right.
And so they will buy these very short essays about something that's sort of directed and pithy and somehow entertaining. And I flood the market with these essays. I really do.
How often do you write these essays?
Constantly.
Well,
Yesterday I wrote 3. Okay. Well, I'm not writing the full essay.
Okay.
I'm writing to a content manager about I'll talk about one that I wrote yesterday that I think it's going to do really well, and it isn't placed yet, but I have no doubt. It's about shame. And the reason I wrote it is because I was at a meeting of something else, like a professional dinner, and I had nobody to talk to. And someone came over to me and said, I read your book. And I said, well, I hope you love whatever I said. And then before I realized what happened, and I couldn't believe this, she leaned into my hair, like privately, and she said, my son has an addiction problem. And it happened 2 times since the book came out that someone whispered to me. And so I thought to myself, why is there shame? Why is there shame in addiction? It's just a disease like, diabetes or and so I wrote about shame. And basically I said, someone whispered into my hair, and how to support not just people, but your topic when it's considered sort of quote unquote shameful.
Right. What's the difference between what you're writing and a blog?
Probably nothing.
Are they on your website?
if they get picked up, they're on my website. I don't put these on my blog. And I have kind of like a philosophical reason for this, because I say philosophical because I'm not sure it's true. I think that if someone like People Magazine or anybody publishes my work, it goes to their audience. If I publish something on a blog, it goes to my audience, and their audience is bigger and made up of people that don't know me yet.
Right.
And so I learned that marketing is when you tag on to somebody else's audience.
Yeah. And I'm struggling with it a little bit. I don't disagree with what you say. What I'm struggling with is, okay, so you came onto the radar screen of a different audience. Frequently, that audience is going to say, I want to hear more about this woman, Lisa. And they're going to go to your site, where they could potentially see more of what you've written.
They do.
So, okay. So, that's what, and I don't, I'm a blog guy, do a lot of things, but it's more my OCD-ish than anything else. I started 16, 17 years ago now, and it's just every other Friday, I call them articles. Okay. I trademarked the term. I put them there. They go on other sites. Sometimes I make podcasts out of them. Sometimes I repurpose them. They've been out. What my wife said, not everybody hangs on every word you said. You could bring one out that came out 15 years ago.
True. That's very true.
So it becomes a way of exercising my writing muscles a little bit, and it becomes a way of getting out different thoughts, but sharing it with my audience. I have no problem sharing it with someone else. But the idea, I'm sharing it with Forbes magazine, so that the Forbes magazine will come to my site, and I want them to be able to see things that I have there. So,
what's the goal? For me, in this particular marketing project, the goal is sell books.
Right.
So do I want someone to read all of my pieces that I wrote in the Huffington Post? There's got to be 60 of them on my website.
Right.
Or do I want them to read the book?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do with this particular kind of marketing. I don't even know if it's going to work yet.
Yeah.
I just started.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because you're right. And it depends on the author. It depends on the book. Depends on the content of the book. We've got a lot of first-time authors that listen to this show. And I'm really trying to get them to up the game on those websites, up the game on a lead magnet of some sort, start creating a database of followers, even if it's 25 of them. Collect them somewhere so they know that you're going to be at, XYZ store, giving a talk. So that's one of the reasons why it's like we got to have some content. You are a content queen. You got content. When I hear 3 in a day, I don't worry about you that you don't have enough content. I think you're filtering through it is what you're doing.
I'm filtering through it. And also, I'm not picking out the ones that I think are going to work, because you don't know what's going to work. What works for you when you and I talk together, it may not hit you. So I'm trying to throw as wide a net as I can, because this is a really hard subject. I'm not sure I would do this with another kind of book. This is a really hard subject. And I think I don't want people to be afraid to read about it. So if they read my style, or if they read something that I wrote that has humor involved, maybe they would be less likely to shy away from Hello Wife.
Are you still working with the publicist, or is that campaign over?
That campaign's just ended.
Okay. Did you make an attempt to reach out to Forbes magazine? Did they try that?
No, but that's on my list.
Put it on your, what I hear from my publicist is the #1 magazine of people who buy books. I mean, you can get on the Today Show with a publicist, but people don't necessarily buy books from watching 2.5 minutes on the Today Show. But it sure is a wonderful thing to share with family and friends. But if your goal is to sell books, and that is your goal, do watch that Forbes, because everybody's pretty much agreed that, and that's why it's hard to get placed in Forbes. But for some reason, Forbes readers buy books.
Yes.
So that's your goal. All right, last question for you. We've got aspiring, young minds, or maybe some older minds, middle minds, all listening to the show, and they're sitting there at that 1 yard line going, Hamana, should I give this a try? What advice would you give somebody who's sitting there with an idea that's percolating? Something's found them. It's just they're waiting to take that first step. What would you tell them?
Write something. I say, write something every day. Set your timer, 15 minutes. Anybody can spare 15 minutes. Turn your phone off. Write something, and then stop and leave and go and do your day. And the next day, write something. And you don't have to link them together. But if you take the cork out and you just start some kind of a routine, if it's percolating, you will eventually find it.
Yeah.
And it may just be the most exciting, marvelous thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, I love that. I still kind of peck away at my journal, and I've always found that the times for these people that are listening right now are going, but what do I want to do the Lisa method. You don't have to have a what or a why or a who.
No.
Get some place where you feel comfortable in writing. Don't put the pressure on, don't put the pressure on yourself that says, but I need something. No, if you just lay your fingers on the keyboard for 15 minutes, Lisa and I are both going to buy you a cup of coffee.
No question.
Because you and I both know, Lisa, that the most fruitful times are when we don't think we necessarily have a big message to write. I think I'm a little less authentic and more stale when I go, I know exactly what I'm going to put down on paper today. Isn't it ironic that we're really better when we don't know exactly what we're going to put on paper?
Exactly. And my children make fun of me because I have a routine when they were here. I mean, now they're grown and gone, but I used to say, I have no talent. I can't do it. I have no talent. I really can't do it. And now they will call, and if they hear that tone of they'll say, what, you have no talent? And this is what I do, and I promise you I'm not making this up just for audience entertainment. I have sat at my computer for those 15 minutes and typed, I have no talent. I have no talent. I have nothing to say. You know what happens? You get bored.
Right.
And maybe you describe somebody that you saw on the bus that morning.
Right.
It's boring to wallow. And if you have to sit there for 15 minutes anyway, write something.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, just while you were saying, I've got no talent, my mind immediately began, if I were writing that, I know I would be starting to question that. And again, that's the beauty of writing. That's where you sit and you paint a picture you had no idea that you were going to be painting that day. So what we're both saying here is, everybody, don't worry about having this magnificent idea to write about. We're going to do the Lisa method. 15 minutes, that's all.
And there's no spelling?
No.
Punctuation? Grammar doesn't exist. But here's a really great tip also.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to read it. You can write whatever you want because no one's ever going to read it. And if you convince yourself of that, you'll write honestly if no one's going to read it.
Right. That's good. That is a good tip. See, I always, with my journals, for instance, I knew people were going to read it, but I always thought my kids are going to read it. So they were PG-13. And I was just sharing my life on the road. I'm a guy with 3 million miles in the air as a professional speaker. So I was on the road a lot. And I was wanting them to, I just sort of thought, boy, I wouldn't give, if my dad had kept a journal, to have something that precious to read, what he was thinking about when he was in the wheelhouse of his career. I wanted to offer that to my kids. So mine are PG-13, but they're honest, and but I just relish the moments, and I still think about them when, because I did it when the plane's wheels would take off. Okay, as soon as we got to 10,000 feet, we can put a tray table down. I'm writing, but I never cared about what to write. It would take care of itself. Anyway, how do people get a hold of you?
LisaKFriedman.com. I'm on all the socials. And I'd love for people to get a hold of me. Write to me, because I'm sitting here in my writing room all by myself all day.
That's right. She's in her 15 minutes right now, and she's agitated. I'm not letting her go yet. All right, we'll get to that writing. Been an absolute pleasure. I can see why you do some teaching on this, and it's nice to have somebody that's as well-rounded as a writer. Just a wonderful conversation with you, because
Excellent.
I don't know if you noticed, but I was taking a couple notes myself. So I always like when I'm learning a couple things on this show, and you were quite the teacher, so thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also hear a brief history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to episode 0.